The Battle of Nordvik event has brought back 128 player breakthrough for a limited time, and it's a great way to experience this crazy mode that was discontinued after 2042 launched. This time, of course, the 128 player breakthrough is experienced on the new Spearhead map, and the massive player count is really pushing the limits of what Spearhead can handle. 64 attacking players on a single front line and 64 defending players on that same line. Sometimes the combat is broken up between two objectives, but sometimes it's just a single target and the exchange of fire gets insane. This is an experience I would absolutely recommend trying out if you never got into the absolute chaos of 128 player breakthrough. Of course, it was dropped later in favor of a more strategic 64 player breakthrough. Now, getting into the game, of course, I had to try out the railgun sniping here. The saturation of this mode just provides such a target-rich environment, and the sniper streaks can get absolutely insane, and the railgun, being one of the most ridiculous long-range snipers in the game, is just honestly meant for this mode, or at least meant to exploit this mode. Especially at the first two objective areas that are mostly outdoors, there's targets almost everywhere you look. One-shot headshots with nearly instant travel time. As long as you can get used to the charge-up shot, you're going to be downing player after player after player. This is absolutely a guilty pleasure of mine. It's just hard to stop once you get going. And surprisingly, I was still able to make out stuff like approaching footstep sounds at times. Once we, say, captured one of the objectives as the attackers, I would stick around supporting the next push while defending the current one, and I was actually able to make out a good amount of approaching footsteps due to the main battle being so far away. Something I wasn't necessarily expecting to be able to take advantage of in just the sheer noise pollution and chaos of the mode. So there is a little room for some subtle tactics, but in general, 128 players is just a wave assault and about building up team momentum more than anything. Now, the mode also comes with a chaos modifier, so players move a little bit faster and vehicles respawn a bit faster. It's not a massive shift in the overall feeling, but it does make getting back into combat a little bit snappier. Now, after playing several rounds of this and enjoying it thoroughly, I can see why it was removed from the game. Things like sniping can become significantly more fun, but a lot of the other playstyles suffer from the sheer chaos. Vehicle users also have to deal with nearly endless Lizzes and other classes taking them out at range, so a lot of the general gameplay tends to suffer quite a bit, but the kill streaks and pushes can get truly next level. I think that's where some of the main excitement comes from. Getting a flank or a sneaky spot and mowing down 5 or more players at a time is not that uncommon in this mode. It's also absolutely ripe for point farming. Even on the games we lost, I was cranking out 3 level 3 ribbons without too much effort. The motion sensor grenade and ammo boxes just rake in the points. Playing with Falk and ammo box motion grenade honestly just feels a bit OP here. Between the spots, revives, and resupplies, it was getting out of control at times. Again, a good example of why this mode doesn't quite fit in and becomes too hard to balance overall. I think a good rule of thumb for Battlefield's core design should be trying to achieve a similar player saturation for most modes. Once the player saturation exceeds a certain amount, specific strategies and playstyles are just going to become less effective and less enjoyable. That doesn't mean that a 128 player breakthrough couldn't work though. It would just need to be a bit more spread out across a longer frontline section and more objectives. The question that we should probably be asking ourselves though, at least for the future of Battlefield, is 128 player upgrade worth it, and how much extra work is required? Battlefield has much more challenging requirements for its map design than, say, games like Call of Duty, where most of COD's modes will fit into a basic small format maze layout. Battlefield has linear modes and large conquest style modes, so to make 128 player breakthrough flow well, the width of the map and objective placement might need to be significantly larger than the conquest version. Thus, the map design gets really complicated, and some of the upgrades that you might get from this mode are a much grander sense of scale and presence, but it potentially only adds a small amount to the overall gameplay experience. Arguably not worth the effort, especially if you consider that this large mode probably came at the expense of other features like more detailed and dynamic destruction. There's no question in my mind that if we asked the Battlefield community if they wanted 128 player modes or higher fidelity destruction, the vast majority would have gone for destruction, as it brings a lot more enjoyment to the gameplay experience, in my opinion anyway. It is funny to look back over the years of Battlefield games and see how many interesting and cool features and modes that have come and gone. Destruction being one of those things that, depending on the Battlefield title, was either heavily featured or lightly featured. Battlefield 2042 having less of it than probably any game since maybe even the Bad Company series. And this franchise has always championed itself as a title pushing the boundaries of tech since it launched. The original game was the only series to do infantry and vehicle combat with a high degree of fidelity and scale for its time, and when the Bad Company series showcased high fidelity destruction, it again was one of the only games to use that tech at scale in multiplayer. 2042 tried to push the boundaries with the player count, but in doing so sacrificed some of the past achievements of the franchise and also ran into the additional complications of map and mode design that came with it. Now, this is the last week of the Battle of Nordvik event. The cosmetics you can earn by playing are pretty easy to unlock and have definitely been worth the effort. The Battle Pass has 7 weeks left after this week. At the end of this month, we're also getting a major patch to look forward to. The Specialist getting reworked into the classic class system is going to make substantial changes to the core experience. On top of that, the Breakaway rework is getting released probably at the same time of this January patch, though I can't remember if they actually confirmed that Breakaway is coming in January. Once that map is live, it'll leave Discarded and Hourglass as the last 2 maps in line for reworks. The Breakaway rework also looks really substantial, moving massive objectives around the map and building in new terrain and caves. Hopefully the base jump sequence is back in the 64-player breakthrough mode. Many of the 128-player breakthrough modes had better progression layouts, and DICE seems to have deleted some of the best sequences in the game when they removed 128-player modes, so I'm hoping that the base jump comes back with the rework. This will be one of the biggest updates for the game since launch, and I've seen a lot of people mention that this is when they're going to jump back into 2042 again. The Specialist update, combined with all the previous map reworks, the quality of life updates to the game, the performance improvements, 2042 is becoming a, dare I say, respectable title, though there's still plenty of debate as to how it stacks up against the previous games. I'm having a lot of fun with it, but there's no denying that certain areas of the game are still lacking, especially when compared to what previous entries in the franchise offered. Are you guys looking forward to the Specialist rework? Do you think it's going to change the gameplay significantly? Let me know in the comments, and while you're at it, check out this video on the Retribution game mode that DICE tested out last week. It combines multiple modes into one for something a bit different. As always, thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.